Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Pelican Softball Report. I am Doug Gann with 446 Sports, and I'm delighted to bring you our 2026 Louisiana High School Softball Preview. And look, tonight we've got one of the special ones on here. If there was a Mount Rushmore of softball coaches in Louisiana, it'd have to have Tim Whitman on there. And we are joined by North Desoto Lady Griffins head coach Tim. Now, Coach Tim, welcome.
Thank you, and I don't think it's because of anything except for I'm just real old. That's the main reason.
Look, you have been at it a while. I think 9 state titles through the schools that you've been with, and a national championship.
Yeah, I've been lucky to be at some great places, good support, and this is no different here. But been lucky to have some great athletes to play for me through the years.
Tremendous run that you guys are on, no doubt about it. Of course, current defending state champions, and we'll get into that game in just a moment. But have won, I think, 4 of the last 5, including that three-peat back prior to this past season.
Yes, we lost we lost in the finals year before last to Lutcher, and then came back to beat them in the semis this year, but 4 of the 5, and you always hate it because you feel like that other one should have been won too. You remember that one more than you remember the 4 you won sometimes, and this is the same case.
I don't know that anybody will forget the one you just won, that 2025 one. That one, the execution, but what folks talked about was, man, did he make that call in the bottom of the 7th on there? Take me through a little bit of that decision on that bunt to walk it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're not really known for bunting too much. We're not necessarily there, even though, I have in the past. There's some teams, at Pineville, we won with the short game a lot of times, on some of those teams. But it was just a situation where that kid was really good. She threw a great curve in drop. She mixed him in well off speed. We were struggling. Everybody talks about how it was a great decision, but I think it was the right one, and it was an easy. And if we don't make it, we're tied, and we're throwing the ball well on the mound at the time. And so, going extra innings wouldn't necessarily have been a terrible thing. But Kinsley, who was batting, had not seen that kid well. She hit it all good all weekend, but for whatever reason, that kid had her number in terms of seeing the ball swinging. In fact, she swung through one early in the count, and it was just a situation where I knew she's one of our better bunters. We work on suicides every day, even though we don't use it a whole bunch. I knew she could do it, and so the combination of good speed at third with Maddie and plus a heads-up base runner too. I had a senior there and a senior at the plate, and so when we called timeout, I said, "Hey, if you get it down, we win. You beat it to first, whatever." And ended up being a perfect situation because it was one of those where they had to try to make the tag at home instead of trying to throw her out, and got around the tag and made the play.
I went back and watched it 10 or 12 more times this morning in preparation for this. There was one that was posted that really had it slowed down a lot, and you've probably seen that video too. And the swipe tag that is made, I mean, it is such a game of inches, and that was a bang play there to get around the tag.
People don't see a lot of things there. First, Maddie made a great job to get around the tag. The ball was spinning foul. If that catcher doesn't get it at that moment, it goes foul. The umpire, people take that out. We always bash on umpires, and I may be someone that gets on umpires some too myself, but he did a good job. If you see him, of really trying to create a lane to see whether the tag was made or not. And boy, he jumped out and was able to get an angle on it and see it fair and see it the tag. And so everything had to go right. Any of those things, you've seen umpires a lot of times be lazy with that and not get in that position and just assume the tag was made. And so it was one of those things where all that stuff went right, and it worked out in our favor, and it was fun to be a part of.
And he emphatically was calling it safe right away too. I mean, there was no hesitancy.
He definitely saw it. From a couple angles, it looked like it was going to be foul, but it was. If you look at it from the angles where it's definitely down the line, it was fair. Now it was spinning. If she lets it go, but instinctively you can't let that go. You've got to try to make that tag, and it was fair when she caught it. So it worked out.
And players are trying to make plays. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
You had a very senior laden team that was part of that. Girls that have a number of rings on their fingers from the years that they've been there. Tell me about some of those seniors that are now gone and their leadership they brought to you.
Yeah, it was a great senior class. And in fact, during the game, I made this comments after the game and even in our banquet. I felt like in our lineup, the top 6 in my lineup, 5 of them were seniors. I felt like if we got back to the top, even when we got out to that, we were down, they scored those 5 runs, right, and we were down. And I felt like I kept counting outs, in the 4th, 5th, and 6th inning, and trying to see, can I get back to my leadoff, which was my senior and leadoff kids. And I felt like if we could get back to that down 5-4, that we had a real good shot just because of the competitiveness, the talent, all the things that go into play of a senior group. And sure enough, we did. Even though leadoff Reagan Henderson, who's at Louisiana Tech, she gets on one now. She hits it hard. It's just hitting the gap, and they ran it down and caught an out. Everybody sort of. But then next senior Sasha Falls, who's at Northwest Community College, she has a great at bat, walks, gets in that position, and then we get in a situation where Maddie's up, and Maddie Stringer, who's at Louisiana Tech, also she probably was as hot that weekend as, in fact, she ended up being the MVP of the thing, and she's been as hot as anybody. And of course, she got on one and set up the 2nd and 3rd. And then Peyton Miller, who's at Georgia Tech, and just going through the list. Sorry,
no, that's right.
She I wouldn't have pitched to her either. They had the tying run on 3rd, winning run on 2nd. They walk her to get to Carson Curtis, who is a junior now, one of my only seniors this year. But Carson, the only thing that they, and they don't, and sometimes you don't know, but they played their middle at double play depth. Right. And they were going to try to turn a double play. Carson is the fastest kid I have on my team, and she's maybe the fastest kid in this state. I mean, she can flat get down the line from the right side. She's 2.8, 2.9, easy, really runs. And so when she hit that ground ball to shortstop and they try to turn double play, we for sure were going to tie the game up. Right. There's no way. I don't know from their depth that they could have thrown them tied to plate anyway, because they were playing double play depth. They didn't have them coming in. So, she beats that out, gets, there, and gives Kinsley a chance to, to do what she did with the bunt.
Look, it was, you could hear, well, of course, we were making our way around, but that field was so loud on that day. It was incredible. It was
a fun game, no doubt about it. And I tell you, I talking about seniors, is the only one I didn't mention in that group was my pitcher, Avery McCloskey.
Right.
Avery is one of those kids that had basically waited behind Lainey Johnson. Lainey went to Louisiana Tech the year before. She was our number 2. She threw a lot of quality innings for us, but she had waited behind us. That was really her year, her only 1 year, senior year. And she has that bad inning. I mean, she's walked some kids. She put some balls in the middle of the plate, that just – that they, when one of them hit it out of the ballpark, they got the runs. But she settled down, and she had her mind right all year. Really had a great year for us all year, threw as well as I could have expected from anybody. And she bared down. And from that point on, I don't even know if they got a hit after that inning, and basically kept us in the game. And I told her that after the game, and told him at the banquet, she probably, doesn't get the credit she deserves just because the score was 5 runs. They had those runs. But, man, even though she had that bad inning, she gutted it out for the next innings and dominated them, and give us a chance there at the end. That was the other senior that graduated as well.
That's that fighting spirit. And one thing about it, you're going through the seniors and where they're playing at the schools. And that's what the great thing is developing these young ladies at that next level. Now, one thing that I picked up on that was Louisiana Tech's getting stronger and stronger every year as a pipeline from North Desoto.
Coach Taylor there at Louisiana Tech does a great job, and a good guy. And he's got 3 of our kids now. Laney's there, been there just 2 years, and Reagan. And Reagan was actually going to North Texas, and they changed coaches, and so we were able to get her changed over late in the game, and both working there. I got to watch them all scrimmage the other day together, and so it's a good group and beautiful facilities there, man. I don't know how many you've seen of their facilities, but they've got them and LSU probably have the two nicest facilities, in the state by far. And UL's got a beautiful place there, but it's a older type, but these are just modern. It's a really beautiful place down in that setting.
What it shows you from the work that Louisiana Tech's doing is how fertile that I-20 corridor is around there in the north part of the state, because they'll pick up Whitman's Maggie Guy out this year, another big star from that north part of the state. Just what is it about the north part of Louisiana that's so rich in softball?
I think Louisiana as a whole has grown with the quality of players and maybe the quantity of the quality. We've always had some quality, maybe not quite as many. And there's a lot of reasons for that, whatever. California and those areas have always been the fertile ground, and they still are. There's a lot of kids there because of just the sheer numbers. They get to face good pitching during the week. Even their summer leagues are quality pitchers, and so that helps hitters. But I think the commitment in Louisiana from coaches all over the state to work kids and develop kids, you see it in every area, the Monroe area, the Shreveport area, through the Ruston corridor there, and then down south, even I-10 corridor the same way. But our area, I think for the most part, is getting better from the standpoint of getting better teams to play against. Of course, us and Calvary in our area have been strong, and we compete against each other, all the time, and that gets us better. But your Sterlingtons, your West Monroes, those people have been strong. Whitman has some quality kids, so it's a whether it's the iron sharpens iron, you play against good people, and that's what that's where you get better.
You talked about the teams that you play. We'll take a look at your 2026 schedule there. And I looked up and down it, and what you guys have is the problem of everybody wants to measure themselves against you. And you talked about Calvary as well. And you'll see those teams, you and Calvary, on a lot of these teams together on there. I don't see a week off in the schedule that you have. That's as solid as it gets.
No, we're a young team this year. I'll start one or two seniors and the rest freshmen and sophomores for the most part. And so we're not probably the same team that we won the state championship with last year. And so, but our schedule is the same, and we're gonna get better, one way or the other. We're gonna have some games this year that where we may get our heads pounded in a little bit, and so it's one of those things where we may get pounded for a little bit, but we're also going to have some games where we get on some people too, because these freshmen grow up a little bit. But basically, I say this all the time, and I've said it every year. You really only got to be good the last 4 or 5 games of the year. Now you got to get there. You got to get in the playoffs. And you got to whatever. But if you're seasoned by that time, then you get yourself a chance, because you've seen all these good teams. You've seen good pitching. You've seen good lineups. And Lord knows we need it this year. We got a lot of work cut out to get better to where we need to get in that position.
What's maybe a name or two that the softball world is not familiar with that you think has an opportunity to introduce themselves this year?
Yeah, I got a lot of young kids that are developing and getting there. I've got a couple of hitters that I think are going to be pretty good hitters. Kennedy Phillips, that was a freshman last year, got in the lineup a little bit, but is developing into one that's there. And of course, Carson Curtis is a senior who sort of takes on the leadership role now and has developed, getting better every year. Maybe, and I'm biased in this regard, but probably the best defensive center fielder in the state. Elite speed. Figured it out as a sophomore. She was still just running after the ball and not really understanding it. Now her angles are great. She gets good jumps on the ball, and her elite speed takes over. She made some plays in the fall when I watched. I told her, I said, those are SEC defensive plays. I said, you don't understand how good you made and easy you made that look. And so she'll set the tone for us offensively and defensively, because she's going to get on base, probably the lead off. And then Leighton Ross is a freshman that has been some big camps in some different areas, can really swing it a little bit. Not sure where she's going to play yet, but can swing it. And so, then we've got to just, get on the mound. We got 3 kids. Leighton Ross is one of them. She's a freshman, but Cam Harmson is my number 2 from last year. She'll be a sophomore, and she spins it really well. She's going to have to get in the circle and give us some things. And then we've got another Macy Cameron is a freshman that look for big things from her. Her potential down the road. She's 6'1", long limbs, got potential to be pretty good on the mound. And so, we're going to be young in some spots, and we're going to have to be a little bit more creative offensively. But I think those are some names you'll hear as we get going.
A 6'1" freshman coming into the circle. Well, that's intimidating because it's almost to the plate when she lets go of it.
She steps out there a little bit now. She's a little skinny. We're gonna have to keep feeding her. We're gonna try to get her a little bit more gumbo and that kind of stuff, and feed her as much as we can to get her, get some meat on her bones, whatever. But yeah, she's a tall, and she did her physicals and stuff, and they got her at 6'1". I said, well, I knew she was. I thought she was a little taller than I was, but she's definitely got the potential. Just because you can't teach long levers, and as a pitcher, that's just things you can't teach,
Hey, Coach, and we'll wrap up. I know you've got a lot to do too, and we appreciate the time you've taken with us. What do you think it is? There's a lot of young talent in the States. We're seeing in some of those schools that allow it, 7th and 8th graders, but freshmen and sophomore are making a big as impact as they ever have.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly the reason. It goes in cycles sometimes. You'll get these classes, and I see it the other class, the junior class. There's some kids that there, but it was one of those things cycle wise. We don't have that many junior. I got one junior, on my whole team, but this freshman and sophomore, you see a lot of teams that have freshman and sophomore classes that are pretty good. It goes in cycles, but I think the exposure to softball from our state in terms of what we do and in terms of kids wanting to play it at a young age, they're developing. Right. This is one of those games. It's hard to pick up at the 9th grader and be good at softball. You're hitting a round ball with that round bat, and you just don't, if you don't swing at a ball until you're a 7th or 8th grader, it's hard to become a good hitter, and so kids are doing it earlier. I've got lessons with kids that, are 6 and 7, and they're not normal 6 and 7. They're focused on, trying their skill and understand it. So I think that's some of it, and then I think the commitment from the high school coaches to do it. And then travel ball's probably what it was 10 years ago from the standpoint of the number of teams and stuff. But I think the traveling of some of these elite players to go way off is probably helping them too, because they're seeing quality pitching at most of the big tournaments they go to.
Look, it used to be you'd go to a travel ball and try to play a tournament close to you so you could do. And now it's Indiana and Colorado and California and Florida and all over the place. The
parents, the money that these parents have to pay to do this is amazing. I mean, we asking for a lot in our program, with our dues and everything, but man alive, they're spending, I couldn't even imagine how much money they're spending per year on travel for tournaments, camps. I just talked about Layton and Macy. Macy was at Texas A&M at a camp past weekend. Layton was at Auburn. I mean, that's a weekend at the hotels and everything else. I mean, there's so much money these parents are putting out there to support their kids that, some of them will play in the college level. We've been fortunate to most of our kids that have graduated, like all my kids that graduated last year got, going on the college level and but not always, and so, but they're putting the money into it. And that's one of the reasons their parents have committed to, hey, we're going to support our children, and we're going to do it in Colorado and California and everywhere else we travel.
Goodness. Well, it's an exciting time for softball in the state of Louisiana and around the country for sure. Coach Tim Whitman, North DeSoto Lady Griffins, they are the defending 2025 state champions out of Division II non-select. Coach, we thank you for taking time and looking forward to visiting with you a lot more during the season.
Doug, we appreciate you, man. You support softball in the state, and these kids are all on all the social medias now, and so the more we can expose our sport to this, we love it, and we want to show everybody. And you've done a good job of doing that. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that as well, guys. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Pelican Softball Report. It has been a good one. I told you it would be. We've had Coach Tim Whitman of the North DeSoto Lady Griffins join us on here. Can they go back down to Frash and repeat? The season we're telling is just around the corner. Tune in for our next episode. It is just a day away. Guys, that'll do it. For Coach Tim Whitman, I am Doug Gann. God bless you all and good night.